Our story begins with a woman who was once a famous singer, a star everyone adored. But now, those golden days were gone. She was sick, bedridden, and frail. Her children stayed by her side, led by the eldest daughter, Rini. They had poured every last penny of their savings into their mother's treatment, but as the year dragged on, she didn't get any better. It felt like their own lives had just stopped. Eventually, Rini realized they couldn't go on like this. They needed to get back to their daily routines. So, they left a small bell with their mother, telling her, "Mom, just ring this whenever you need us." The kids went back to school, trying to find some normalcy. Her son, Tony, loved her deeply. She had always looked after him the most so. Every single day after school, he would come home and gently comb her hair. But one day, things turned strange. As Tony ran the comb through her hair, it all started falling out in clumps. Suddenly, a violent wind burst through the window. When Tony rushed to close it, he turned around and saw his mother staring out into the empty air with a look of absolute terror, as if she were seeing a ghost. It spooked Tony so much that he ran out of the room. The next afternoon, it happened again. Rini brought her mother some food, only to find her eyes locked on the ceiling, paralyzed by something invisible. When Rini tried to leave, her mother desperately knocked the dishes over to stop her, ringing that bell over and over. Rini, thinking her mom was just panicking as her condition worsened, gave her medicine and tucked her in to sleep. That night at dinner, Tony mentioned how scared Mom seemed looking out the window. Rini had seen it too. She actually pleaded with their father to leave the house, but he flatly refused. Later, in the middle of the night, Rini caught her dad having a hushed, secret conversation with her mother. The moment he saw Rini, he went dead silent. Confused, Rini went back to bed. But she was woken up by the sound of the bell. When she went to check, she saw her mother standing by the window, draped in a large white cloth. Rini was actually happy for a moment. She thought her mom was finally walking again. But as she reached out to touch her mother's shoulder, the bell started ringing loudly from the bed behind her. She looked back and saw her mother lying right there. When she turned back to the window, the figure in white was gone. Rini woke up gasping. It was just a nightmare. But then she heard it. The bell was ringing in real life. She ran to the room, and everything was exactly like her dream. Her mother was by the window. She glanced at the bed. It was empty. This time, it really was her mother. But the moment Rini touched her, her mother collapsed into her arms and passed away in total pain. The funeral was held the next day. Everyone hoped the nightmare was over, but it was only the beginning. That night, the youngest brother saw a dark shadow in the graveyard near their house and screamed. Meanwhile, Tony heard the bell ringing in his own room. When he went to his mother's room and flipped the switch, he saw the bell moving all by itself. He was so terrified he hid under his covers. The next morning, he turned on the radio for some comfort, but instead of music, all he heard was the sound of a ringing bell. When he turned it off, his mother's comb was suddenly sitting in his hands. He dropped it in horror, and when he turned the light back on, the radio went silent and the comb vanished into thin air. Rini was convinced her mother couldn't rest because of these items. So, she took them and buried them at her mother's grave. But the house wasn't quiet. The two younger brothers went to use the bathroom that night and were terrified by their mother's portrait in the hallway. They decided to cover it with a sheet, but when they threw it, the sheet didn't hit the wall. It draped over something invisible standing right in front of the picture. They screamed, and though the adults found nothing but a sheet on a photo, the children knew someone had been moving toward them. Rini knew then that her mother was still in the house. She held a prayer service and met her neighbor, Hendra. He dropped a bombshell. He and his father could see the dead. He told Rini he saw a terrifying figure at the funeral and had seen it around their house many times. Rini, who didn't believe in the supernatural, didn't invite them in. But then, their grandmother, who was always in a wheelchair, disappeared. We see the grandmother somehow get up and walk toward the bathroom. When Rini's brother went in, he started screaming. Grandmother had jumped into the well. After they pulled her body out, Rini was heartbroken. While cleaning her grandmother's room, she found a letter addressed to a man who understood spirits. Rini realized there was a huge secret here, and she and Hendra went to find this man. He told them a chilling story. He and the grandmother were childhood friends. He revealed that Rini's mother was actually unable to have children, but years later she suddenly had 4. She had used a dark ritual, a contract with the devil to become a mother. The man gave Rini a book explaining the ritual. A demon would grant a woman children, but in exchange, he would take the last child as a sacrifice. Rini and Tony realized the truth. Their mother kept having more children, 7 in total, to try and protect the family, hoping a big group would make them stronger. But after the 7th, her health broke. Tony panicked, realizing his birthday was in 4 days. The horrors intensified. The youngest brother saw his mother's spirit in the bathroom. He felt something grab his shirt. It was just a nail, but the spirit was closing in. He hid in a trunk all night until Rini found him. Rini tried to pray for protection, but she felt a presence. When she finished, she turned around to find the spirit right in her face. "It's not safe here," Rini told her father. "We have to leave." They decided to stay at Hendra's, but then the old man called Rini, telling her to come over immediately. Hendra went instead. The man gave Hendra a letter with the full truth, but on the way back, a spirit caused Hendra to crash his bike. A truck hit him instantly. Someone was killing anyone who tried to tell Rini the truth. Rini found the letter on Hendra's body. That night, as she closed the windows, a hand grabbed her and tried to pull her out into the dark. Her brothers saved her. Her dad finally promised they would leave in the morning, but the night wasn't over. The youngest brother got locked in the bathroom. By the time Dad broke the door down, the boy was gone, thrown into the well. Dad jumped in and saved him just as it started pouring rain. Outside, Rini saw dozens of figures in black. The Satan slaves! They had come for the sacrifice. The house became a war zone. Furniture flew through the air, launched by invisible forces. The doors were stuck. A spirit in black controlled everything. They watched in horror as the spirit pulled the youngest son away. Despite their best efforts, the devil took the boy and vanished. The cult members began throwing red seeds around the house. Rini didn't know what they were, but she knew the nightmare wasn't over. The next night, the cult returned for the 4th son. As Rini and her dad fought to hold the door, the man from the letter arrived to help them. They realized the path was clear. Their grandmother's spirit was actually fighting the demons from the afterlife to let them escape. The family fled to the city. They thought they were safe, but the devil is patient. They lived peacefully until a new neighbor arrived, bringing them food every day. She too was a servant of the cult, carrying those same demonic seeds that allow the darkness to return. Rini's family was about to face something even worse. And that is where our story ends.